So it says maximum sustainable yield. So remember, that's the maximum amount essentially that we could take from the population without causing damage to the population of fish in this case, because that's what we're talking about. Um, so we're looking at what makes it sustainable. So we're not damaging the stock of fish, we're not damaging the population, and we're trying to determine, well, what a lot of people want to know is the maximum sustainable yield, which is just the maximum amount of fish that they could catch without causing any damage to the overall population. So it would be able to replenish itself. So this is all, theoretical, so it's actually really hard to determine if, it's like we said, it's real hard to determine the actual population anyway. So then to determine the maximum sustainable yield accurately is also just very theoretical. So we're not totally sure, how to do it and what the number value would actually be. But in general, they say the maximum sustainable yield should be about half of the carrying capacity. So remember, the carrying capacity is the maximum amount of fish that can live in an area without damaging the environment. So it all depends on many many factors, excuse me. So reproductive strategy, are they R or K strategists? How long do they live? What are limiting factors in the ecosystem? And remember that the population actually doesn't just hit the carrying capacity and flatten out entirely, that there is fluctuation around the carrying capacity in all normal populations. So, the idea is, theoretically, to calculate the maximum sustainable yield so that we know how many fish to get, but that's really, really challenging. So we're trying to figure out, how we can look at these things like the annual growth, how we can figure out the carrying capacity, and then how would we determine, what half of that would be about. And we're trying to do this because we want to maximize our yields as well, so that we can fish as much as we want to and then have fish still left over. So if we look at this, it's talking about the yield, like how many fish we're fishing, okay, and then the efforts that are going into it. So we ideally think that we should be around here, so we're not causing damage, okay, we're not depleting the population, and yet we're getting enough so that the fish can be replaced and the population won't be damaged. So theoretically, again, this is all theoretical. It's really hard to actually determine. If there were 1,000 fish born every year, it is not taking into account any other changes within the population, just if there are 1,000 fish born and all survived, etc., then we could take 1,000 fish. So we're just taking the number of fish that could be replaced within that year. So, some issues. Sustainable yield, so SY, sustainable yield in general, which I think we have talked about this at least once before, maybe even twice. We're talking about the annual growth or recruitment. Okay, so how many new individuals are being added to the population, and we're subtracting how many individuals die or emigrate, so the number of individuals lost. We're again trying to create this estimate to have this population be stable. However, it is really, really, really hard. In fact, it's darn near impossible. And remember that the population can experience other setbacks as well. So yes, there's fish, we say that they should be, at their carrying capacity, but what if there's a storm that year? What if the population has a disease? What if there's some other habitat disaster, okay, some sort of disturbance? There's so many things that can happen that it's really something that's in a very challenging balance. Okay, so the reality of the situation is, even if we could determine the carrying capacity, the actual carrying capacity of the population, and then we could determine what half of that would be, it really would not be a smart idea for us to fish at that level. Because if any other catastrophic event or some other event occurred for that population that would possibly damage the population as well, then they would not be able to recover. So then we're going back into that unsustainable zone. So we're saying that theoretical maximum sustainable yield is not actually sustainable, because of the other challenges that could occur for the population. Now, that does mean that we could still come up with like an optimal sustainable yield, so a little bit less, maybe a safer approach, a little bit more conservative, to take a certain number of fish, okay, that wasn't quite at that maximum sustainable yield, just in case the population had some other challenges within a year. Okay, actually, perfect. That's it. So I'm sorry we didn't get that into one video. It seems like it's really hard to do. Please let me know if you have questions. Okay, I'm sorry this took too long. I was having some major issues with my computer and the Screencast-O-Matic, but it seems to be working okay right now. All right, have a good day.